An answer.
I went up. This is Randy's thing, not mine. So
That's okay.
I'm just supposed to be doing the Q&A thing. So
I need time to burp.
all right, that is true. There's plenty to talk about. So in the '70s, Randy took a little bit of a turn and got what do I say? Invited to help out with the movie Pacific Vibrations. Who here has seen John Severson's movie Pacific Vibrations? Oh, good God! There's more people. Thank you. More surfers, please. All right, good movie. If you haven't seen it, go look it up. All right, so Pacific Vibrations is.
Well, can we just, since we were with the Beatles,
Oh, sure, link it.
and before Sgt. Pepper's came out, the draft in Vietnam War, and so Ed enlisted in the basic training, and Phil, who's missing, has just, our sax player, had enlisted in the Navy, and we had about 6 months off. So when we'd done our first albums, they were in the World Pacific Jazz Studios, and we did, the Defenders played the big ones for the owner of the studio, and he said, "You want some free records?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "What do you like?" I said, "Flamenco guitar, because that's like surf music, only better, you know, in a way. More intricate, smarter." Remember, we're doing that. And happy. And so he pulls out, he said, "This, if you like flamenco, you'll love this." And it was the first Ravi Shankar album. And I said, "Oh, yeah, great." So I took it home and I put it on.
Sounded like somebody was squeezing a cat.
Well, I don't know. It just was so out of tune. But then my roommate, Mike Salisbury, who was later art director for Surfer Magazine and done the Murphy cover and then Surfing Magazine and did Gotcha, and we worked together on the movie Apocalypse Now, and he did West Magazine and the LA Times and branded the Levi 501 campaign. Mike played it. We're living on Balboa Island, and I heard it from the other room, and it was more interesting. So I read the liner notes, and the next time I went up to the jazz studio, I asked Dick Bach about it. He said, "Well, ask Ravi when he gets here in January." So when Ravi came, I asked him a bunch of questions about it. And he said, "Oh, you have too many questions. If you must know, you must come to India." So when the draft came and we had 6 months off, I just went to India, and I happened to arrive at the same time that George Harrison was there for a 6-week layoff around just before Sgt. Pepper's, and he and I were both Ravi's guests at the time, and George and I became friends. We were the only honky guys in the room, and we stayed friends until he passed on.
Is that what they call Americans in India, honkies?
Yes.
I love it. All right. So, show of hands. Who here knows what a sitar is?
Yeah.
See, now these are music fans. There we go.
Yeah. So George and I stayed friends, and I introduced him to Bob Dylan, and so I have the George Harrison album, All Things Must Pass. They sent me a platinum album, and in New Zealand they put my little drop picture of me on the Sgt. Pepper's album there as just sort of a friendly gesture. And so that's our kind of Beatle relationship, stayed going forever and ever, and I'm still friends with his older sister Louise, who's 78 now and lives in Branson, Missouri. Can you imagine being a British person living in Branson, Missouri? But
Technically, then you are a honky.
you are. It's the last thing you hear before. It's the last thing you hear before you get run over. That's where the term comes from.
All right. Well, good. Thank you.
Oh, you were Pacific Vibrations.
Yeah, exactly.
So back in 10th grade, we'll go back. I'm going to 9th grade. I met a greaser kid from Lakewood, and he drew a funny picture. Yeah, in relationship to a story I told the previous day at Nutrition about Francis Knight sneezing on Charlie Couch.
Nutrition is lunch.
No, it's the 10 o'clock break before lunch.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, see,
and you get,
we didn't get that.
Cinnamon rolls. So I figured he wanted to be my friend, and he knew how to toe shine shoes like a really good greaser. I asked him to teach me how to toe shine shoes, and he sort of rolled back on his heels like I wanted the keys to the kingdom, the secret mojo of Vato. Is a Vato, man. He said, "What do you do for me, man?" And I thought, "Oh, I'll teach you how to surf." Okay. And so I said, "What do I do now?" He said, "Buy a new pair of shoes and bring them to my house, and I'll you do one and I'll do the other one. And and then I had to teach him how to surf, and that was Rick Griffin. So to get him off my board, I had to get him his own board. So we did some illustrations on Bing Copeland's Surfboards by Bing, Bing surfboards. And I asked Bing for a deal for Rick, and Bing said no. So I'm like 14 years old, I marched him up the street to Pier Avenue to Greg Knoll's shop, and I hustled Greg for a deal. And Rick did a lot of stuff for Greg Knoll. But then we went surfing at Huntington Beach, and the Huntington Pier was a hard place to surf because they didn't have leashes. If you lost your board, you could die, and break your board. So we're kind of like tenuous waxing up, and there's this local guy takes off and rides, and somebody goes, well, there goes Murphy. And a few rides, look, there goes Murphy. So we never met this guy, but on the way home, we started thinking about Murphy as this ultimate surfer guy, and we started drawing a cartoon story of Murphy and the Huntington Beach Surf Contest. And so when John Severson came to our high school in 10th grade at Narbonne High School, same school that Quentin Tarantino graduated from, and Bo Derek, the Perfect 10, she went to Narbonne too. He showed his movie, and after his movie, I took this 3-ring binder notebook with 60 pencil drawings and showed them to John, and John liked them. And so I said, do you want to meet my friend? So I brought Rick down and introduced him. And about a year later, Severson started Surfer Magazine, and Murphy in the Surf Contest, those 60 drawings, Rick redrew in the couple issues of the first early Surfer magazines.